It's one small step for man.
Out for the out for the AJ's Book Corner. We're reading the book Little Black Lies by Sharon Bolton. I believe just about anyone can kill in the right circumstances given enough motivation. The question is, am I there yet? I think I must be, because lately it seems I've been thinking of little else. It's a minute after midnight, and 2 days' time it will be the 3rd of November. 2 more days. Am I there yet? Something is moving, not the water surrounding me, that seems to see that it's a giant petrel, massive prehistoric-looking beast with their 6-foot wingspan and their huge curving beaks. They often follow the boat, especially when I'm out at night, keeping pace with me however far I go or how fast I drive. I'm not driving now. I'm sitting in the cockpit staring at a photograph of my 2 sons. I must have been doing so for some time because my eyes are stinging. I squeeze them shut, then force myself to look away. In the distance, the mountains are dark against a paler night sky, and the water around me has the appearance and texture of an old glass mirror. Still flawed in places, not quite translucent. It does this at times. This ocean assumes a character so unlike itself as to take you momentarily unawares, makes you forget that it's one of the harshest, least forgiving seas in the world. I'm anchored off the coast of the Falkland Islands, a tiny archipelago in the South Atlantic Ocean, so distant from everywhere what that matters, so unimportant on the world stage that for centuries it escaped just about everybody's attention, and then it became the discarded bone over which 2 ego-driven dogs of politics picked a fight. For a few brief weeks, the whole world knew about us. That was over a decade ago, and the world soon forgot. We don't forget, though, and neither does Argentina. Every so often, even 12 years after it had its ass kicked, the Argentinian government cast a leery eye in our direction. The Argentinians say that the Illas Malvinas belong to them. We say, up yours. Not that we're so very happy to be what we've become, an expensive indulgence, one of the last remaining scraps of the British Empire. We long for independence, but then come to fund our own different defense. The hope is a faint one, and we never feel safe. The photograph of my sons has faded. It's not so obvious now, but in the daylight, the red of Kit's jacket will be a dull pink, Ned's yellow boots a sickly cream color. On the water, the reflected moon is so still and perfect that it might have fallen whole and undamaged from the sky. It lies a little way off the stern, and as slender and unsubstantial as a sliver of wood shaving. Stars are scattered around it like glitter, as though someone has sprinkled them randomly over the surface of the ocean. There is no light pollution in this far corner of the South Atlantic, and every star in the sky night is reflected directly below me. I seem surrounded by stars when I live briefly in the cities of the Northern Hemisphere, where the stars are pinpricks of light, sometimes invisible entirely. It was easy to forget their sheer number. Back home, every time I come out upon the ocean at night, I'm reminded of the vastness of the sky. And this story is basically talking about Falkland Islands. A missing child is unheard of. In such a dangerous landscape, it can only be a terrible tragedy, surely. When another child goes missing and then a third, it's no longer possible to believe that their deaths are accidental, and the villagers must admit that there is a murderer among them. So yeah, this story is kicking off with, slow burn, as you can see. But yeah, I think it's really going to take on its own, and we'll see what it shapes as. I've been on a mystery kick lately. I don't know why, but I read, the last 2 books I read were mysteries, and then these 2 books that I got now are mysteries. So we'll see where it goes there. Now let's jump right into today's episode. We're going to be talking about you're not being lazy, you're being smart. How to know when to give up or not even try in the first place by Susan Cross Whitbourne, PhD, ABPP. So we kind of live in a culture that treats being busy like a badge of honor, always doing something, being extroverted, and so on and so forth. We look at multitasking, we used to, but I feel like that's kind of been debunked, honestly, about multitasking. But they used to look at multitasking as a sign of intelligence and efficiency. Checking off a to-do list, running a lap, or, staring intensely at the laptop, society gives you the thumbs up. You're doing right. But what happens when you just sit? When you basically just stare out of a window, when you choose to do absolutely nothing while the world spins frantically around you? We start to wonder, basically, Our society kind of makes us start to wonder, am I being lazy? But I guess there's a different question we can ask here. What if there isn't something wrong with you for wanting to rest? And what if there's this level of obsession with constantly wanting to be, busy all the time, and that obsession is kind of broken? So what we're going to talk about today is kind of some science behind how giving yourself permission to pause is necessary. And we're going to kind of look at recategorizing or like redefining laziness as kind of an adaptive strategy for your well-being. So to understand why we feel the urge to do nothing, we have to look inside the brain. So in 2026, actually this year, a fascinating study was published by psychologist Natalie Andre and her colleagues at the University of Poitiers, and they looked at the psychology of effort through the lens of computational neuroscience. Say that 3 times fast. Basically, it's talking about the biological speaking, humans and most animals operate on something called a principle of least effort. It means that given the choice, our brains naturally look for the easiest path to get a reward to avoid pain. And I was like, yeah, that makes sense. Historically, we've been taught that this makes us inherently lazy, but the researchers found something even deeper. Basically, our brains are constantly performing a beautifully complex cost-benefit analysis, trying to maintain homeostasis, which is just a fancy scientific word for keeping the body's internal systems balanced and running efficiently, basically. So, your energy is like money in a bank account. You don't hate spending money, you just hate wasting it on things that provide no value, honestly. Your brain treats your energy the same. Neuroscience calls the active inference theory. Basically, your brain says, if I spend my precious mental or physical energy on this task, will I get meaningful information, growth, or reward out of it? The answer is yes. They gladly run marathons, solve grueling puzzles, or work late on projects we love. The effort itself isn't what drains us, it's the feeling that the effort is costing us more than it's giving back. And I think that makes sense based off of like the thing of like why I try to find things that are enriching to me versus things that, let's go travel the world. Is that going to be enriching to me? Probably flipping not. Because the cost of having to travel the world is me having to book a flight, book boarding, go to functions. Like, I would much rather not do that, probably in most cases, because it's a hassle. And I mean, it may be enriching, but I don't think the cost effect analysis in that situation for me is going to pay off. But anyway, so basically, the effort for doing that, it could drain us, and it, like I said, it feels like it's costing us more. So basically, to practice gentle self-compassion, we need to understand what our brain is actually calculating behind the scenes. So building on the work of Roy Baumeister from Harvard, a Harvard psychologist, the research team identified 8 distinct costs that our brain weighs every single time you face a task. And here they are. First, the metabolic cost, the literal physical cost of it, how many calories, body energy, all that stuff. So, second, cognitive control, the heavy lifting of focused, uninterrupted thought. Third, time, how much of your finite lifespan has this task take. Fourth, time pressure, the stress and anxiety of a ticking clock. Fifth, fatigue, the looming physical and mental exhaustion that waits for you at the finish line. Sixth, pain, the actual physical discomfort of strain. Seventh, frustration, the emotional toll of what you're giving up, the opportunity cost just to do this one thing. And eighth, the risk and threats, the fear of failure, judgment, or anxiety the task might invoke. So basically, we look at this list, we start to realize sometimes experience, like why we basically start to realize why we sometimes experience what we call ego depletion. That's what the psychologists are saying. You spend all day paying these heavy emotional and physical costs, your internal bank account is hit zero. It makes perfect sense why we would sometimes, just finish the grueling marathon, might immediately want to sit down and have a beer. Why, after a massive week at work, our brain completely shuts down and wants nothing more than to watch reality TV for 5 hours. It's not that you're failing, just your brain's just balancing the books. And I love that. Like, I think that's the most, easiest way to, say that using that bank analogy. So, the researchers looked back at studies tracking infants and young children, and they discovered something pure. In one study, A 6-year-old children smiled significantly more after completing a difficult task than an easy one. They also smiled wider when a task was completely new, requiring more brain power than when it was just a repeated routine. As the study basically put it, pleasure tracks information gain rather than effort per se. We love to learn, we love to grow, we love the feeling of overcoming a hurdle. In fact, the researchers note that that which requires a massive amount of shared mental and physical effort is the absolute bedrock of healthy, thriving human relationships. So we're just going to say that evidently humans aren't just automatically intentionally lazy. We want to live, we want to try to connect, but we can only do that with some level of like sustainability when we respect and have boundaries. So we need to integrate that into our daily lives. How do we go about doing that? We got to kind of shift our perspective in a way on what it kind of means to be what they call lazy but idle. So if you're sitting, like I'm sitting here right now and I'm choosing to rest, how am I putting my energy back into my bank? How am I conserving my resources? Things like that. And I think, it's built on me, especially me right now, trying to find something that's enriching to me. So today, like I spent a large amount of my day, and I took like a 2.5 hour nap when I got home. But I woke up, I went hiking, came back, I talked to my family on FaceTime. Then I went out and I was just going to different places. I went to like 6 different places today and just walked around, looked at stuff, and then I came home and stuff like that because I hadn't been out of the house in on the weekend in a while. I'd just been going hiking and coming back home and sticking around home or whatever. But I got out today and just enjoyed the day. It was really nice there and things like that. So that was enriching to me. It's not about like constant exertion. It's not about absolute withdrawal either. It's about using your energy in the most optimal ways. And knowing yourself, I feel like, helps with that. And being able to be gentle with yourself and honoring your moments of I can't right, or I don't want to right now, and I won't. So, the next time when you're like super busy and the world's demanding all this stuff of you, trust the bank account in your own mind and tell yourself, rest is not a reward. It's not something to be earned. It is a good foundation that allows you to live a fuller life. So I really like that. Moving on to what I'm happy and grateful for. I'm happy and grateful for finding one of the today on my journey, finding one of the Fresh Squad dolls. Like, as you know, I'm an adult doll collector, so I'm of the community. And recently, I've seen these male Fresh Squad dolls, and I already had one gifted to me. But there's like 3 other ones, and I think I got Ian. He kind of looks like Colin Kaepernick, honestly, with this large afro. He has like full articulation, and with some limitations, but overall the clothes are pretty great quality. He has like a leather jacket that actually zips, and like purplish long sleeve shirt, and like black jean-like pants and black boots. He's a really nice doll. The quote: "The most dangerous form of blindness is believing that your perspective is the only reality," by Frederick Nietzsche. I don't know how to say that. This quote to me means that you basically lack the ability to learn. And in lacking the ability to learn, you fail to evolve. And in failing to evolve, you become stagnant. Thinking that only what I believe is right, I feel leaves me with blind spots and stagnates my growth. I feel like, I like to learn. I like to hear other people's perspectives and learn from them, even if it's learning how not to be from them. But before I go, be sure to check out the show notes. Also, check out my books on Amazon titled Poems to Cry to in the Dark and Love Letters Never Sent to Myself, and leave a 5-star rating. Other than that, I don't have anything else. I'm glad you're still here, and I hope you find...
One, giant leap